Hey everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to A Vintage Vanity. I am super excited for today's video because, well, you guys are here. As well as we are going to be sewing up a vintage inspired 1950s Christmas dress. And I'm so excited about this because I have had this fabric in my stash for over a year and just wanted the perfect project for it. And today is that day. So let's dig in. The fabric that I'm going to be using is this cotton from Alexander Henry, and the print on this is called Merry Main Street, and I just love it so much. It's a like 1950s Main Street Christmas shopping scene, and I can't. I love it so much. I think one of the reasons why I love it so much is not only because it's really cute, but also that it reminds me of the Christmas windows in Chicago at the Marshall Fields. It's always like these big displays and it's animatronics and it's magic. It's just Christmas magic in a window, and this kind of gives me that same vibe and feeling. So I'm really excited to finally be cutting this fabric. But let me tell you, making that first cut was hard. And then for the collar for this dress, I'm going to be using this cream faux fur. I absolutely love this. I thought it was a really great pairing to the print because even though the background looks kind of white, it's kind of a creamy white, and this was a creamy white faux fur as well. So it's like the two were made to be together. And what I really liked about this faux fur is it's not like a super long fur, and it's not like a short pile either. I guess the easier way of saying that would be it's a medium length faux fur. Don't ever cuddle with faux fur when you're filming because I am covered. Much better. The perfect fabric, of course, calls for the perfect pattern, and for this one, you guys aren't going to be surprised. I'm using another Gertie pattern. I just love them so much. Well, hello. So does the cat, and this is the Night and Day dress from Charm Pattern. If a pattern could be a choose your own adventure, it is the Night and Day dress pattern because you literally can pick between, I think, 3 different skirt options, a couple different bodice options, a couple different collar and sleeves. So it's really just a big... I'm trying to wait for the table to stop. No, leave camera. Maybe this will work. So you really get to mix and match to create the perfect dress pattern for your project. For this dress, I'm using the rounded boat neck neckline. I am also choosing to do the tied collar as well as the elbow length bishop sleeves, and then I'm going to do a full circle skirt for the skirt. Is this dress directly inspired by the mood board video I did a couple weeks ago? 1000%. If you haven't seen that video, I will place it on the screen and in the description. If you guys have seen any of my past sewing videos, you know that they are not a traditional step-by-step of sewing the entire dress, but more of a sewing vlog that tends to focus on a few key areas of doing that sewing project. I keep feeling like I have fur on my chin, but that could just be my beard coming in. So for this video, the focus is really going to be on transferring the changes and adjustments you made on one pattern piece to another pattern piece. Because the great thing about Gertie's Night and Day dress is that you can do multiple versions of a dress, and I have done a square neckline version, and that is a completely separate pattern piece, which is completely different around the neckline and the shoulder and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to apply the changes that I made on that to this pattern. And the shocking thing about this is I'm not going to make a muslin because I have a Christmas party in technically less than 2 days, and I want to wear this dress there. So I'm already nervous because I like doing my muslins, and this is my cherished fabric, and those two things like spark a lot of anxiety. The other thing is I'm going to share a little bit about working with faux fur as well. The other thing I'm going to say about the way that I adjust patterns is that I am completely self-taught, and this may or may not be a proper way of doing things. I've just found that this is the way that it works for me, and that might change in the future. Or if you've been a long time seamstress, you might be like, why are you doing that way? So yeah, just want to stick that disclaimer right in there. With that in mind, we are going to start things off by making the bodice pattern adjustments. The first thing you're going to do is pretend like there are no pink marks on here. I tried doing this using something different, and the differences just didn't look right, didn't feel right. The changes were too massive, so I said, you know what? I'm going to pull out the original pattern and take a look at what I did there. So this is basically from the same night and day dress pattern set. I know this bodice with the modifications I made fits really well. So I'm trying to replicate what I did here onto here. But when I did that originally, you can see it's not right. So taking a look at this one, I can basically see what I did was that for the armhole, because the armhole is way too tight, way too tight. So I ended up cutting out a, what was that? An 8 in the armhole rather than the 16 that I actually am, which is a big difference. I'm going to interrupt things really quick because I don't think I was super clear on why I made the shoulder adjustments that I made by cutting in on an 8 rather than the 16. Is that if you look at my shoulder right now, you can see that the seam sits right at the apex of the shoulder. When I did the other bodice version, the shoulder was actually off the top of it by about a half an inch. So what was happening a lot is that it would fall off the shoulder or feel like it was constantly falling off the shoulder. So to adjust for that, what I did is I removed half an inch here so that the seam would sit on the top of the shoulder. On this pattern, an 8 sits right here. So I'm going to follow this line. And then I did on this pattern, you can't really see it, but I did shave off a little under the armpit area. So I am going to leave that shaved off. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this 8 line all the way down. And then I'm just going to kind of naturally curve it until it meets the pink. The other thing that you can see is I took that 8 line all the way up to the shoulder 16, and that's what we're going to do here as well. So we're just going to continue this line all the way up to 16. The other thing that I did that's not represented on this is I actually moved this neckline in by 5/8 of an inch because I just found that it was falling off the shoulder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lining up the shoulder to see where this shoulder falls. And I'm going to just place a mark right there. So that's where that was, and I want to go 5/8 to the inside of that, which is actually where our pink is marked. So we're going to take that down, kind of follow the lines here, and just naturally curve it in. The best piece of advice I am going to give you on making any type of changes to your pattern is once you've marked those changes and done all that, but before you kind of get to cutting everything out, walk away. Just take some time, do something else, let your mind wander and kind of think, and then come back maybe half an hour later and look at the changes you've made and make sure that they make sense before you actually commit to them. That has saved my fake bacon a number of times. So now we have to do the same thing to the back, and this is the back from the square neckline as well. And again, I did the same thing, just graded it down. So I'm just going to take my pen and I'm going to mark it at the size 8 for the armpit. And then I'm just going to lay this on there, right? Okay, so it looks like we kept it right to there. So I'm gonna go from the 16 over to meet the 8. We have a nice line there. We're also gonna continue this up. I'm gonna add that 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so those are the changes to the back. So I'm gonna cut this out. And the other thing that I am gonna mention is that after I cut these out, I actually keep these little remnants off to the side just in case things don't happen the way they're supposed to, because I can always tape these back on. So this little piece that I just cut off, I'm actually gonna put back on it so I know which one it came from. And I'm just gonna safely put this to the side in case we need it again. Before we continue on with the sewing, we are going to stop and share the love. And today we are sharing that love with Ashley from Lisa Fremont Street. If you guys have been around for a while, you know Ashley. She is one of the original vintage hair tutorial gurus on YouTube, and I absolutely adore her. And after taking a hiatus for a little while, she is back and making pretty regular content, which is super exciting because her hairstyles are chef's kiss perfection, but also she does a lot of really accessible hairstyles, especially if you're starting to get into vintage style. So I will leave her link down in the description and on the screen, and you can go check her out when you're done watching this video. Because we went ahead and messed with the necklines, our next concern is going to be the scarf collar. So I'm going to walk this pattern to see where I fall short for this. I marked 5/8 of an inch, so where my seam would be here, and then on our back bodice as well, right at the shoulder, I'm gonna mark 5/8 of an inch as well, because we're gonna kind of fake where the seam would sit, because our scarf goes on after these two pieces are put together. To fold back the seam allowance, quote unquote, on our front bodice, and I am just going to line these two pieces up. For the most part, we followed the size 8 neckline, so it would say that we want to follow the size 8 line on here. What we're going to do is we're going to start with our pattern marking here on 8, because that is going to match up with this little mark here. So I can just barely see my paper under there. So where it starts to not line up, I just want to adjust my pattern to follow that curve. That mark to match up with our seam. Because we moved that shoulder up by 5/8 of an inch, we are missing hitting our seam by 5/8 of an inch as well. So that is what I would have expected to see. So that tells me that we're going to have to increase our scarf by 5/8 of an inch. But I want to keep this curve, so I don't want to add it over here because that just extends it here. We want to extend this curve because we still have to get around this area. So I'm going to line up my scarf on my cutting mat here so that this edge is sitting straight. And then I'm just going to take my ruler. I want to cut right about there, so I find a line that I can line my ruler up on, so that way I know I'm making a straight cut. And I just take my rotary cutter, bam, and then all I'm going to do, and then I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch, carry out a line, doesn't matter which one. So that gives us an idea of where to match this up on the other side. So we want to be kind of right there, like so. And now I am good to cut out on the size 8 line. So I did end up adding another 5/8 in here, and I should have realized that because it happened on both shoulders. So I should have realized it needed to happen on the scarf as well. And then I am just going to match up our notches and walk this baby all the way around. And that line there should be hitting right at our seam, and it is just about perfect. It's coming around and it hits over here as well. So scarf, perfect. It is a bit of a ripple effect when you change one thing on a pattern. Because we changed the armhole, it is going to matter what size sleeve we cut out. If we were to cut out just a plain 16, it's not going to fit in the cap, so the part that attaches to the shoulder. So we want to make sure that the cap is the same size that we cut out. And originally we adapted our size 16 to cut out at the size 8 line. So for the cap, we are going to cut out a size 8. Though, when we get to the side, because we want to keep the width of the sleeve the same, we're going to cut out a 16. When it's fabric you love, I don't care how long you've been doing this, the first cut is always the hardest. The front bodice is cut out, as well as the 2 back bodice pieces. And I did go ahead and do the darts on the front and the back. And now all I'm going to do is stitch up the shoulders, stitch up the sides. Wait a minute, I had a rumor that you're not subscribed to this channel. You know what that means? You're gonna miss all the great content that comes out. So you're gonna wanna make sure and hit that subscribe button before you leave. Also, I've been trying to hit 50,000 subscribers here on YouTube by the end of the year. I don't know if we're gonna make it, but let's try to get as close as we can. And clicking that subscribe would help me get just a little bit closer. Moving on to the collar, the first thing we're gonna do is cut out the knot, then the actual collar itself. And before cutting out anything with faux fur, you wanna make sure you're cutting in the direction of the nape. So we want to make sure that the top of the knot, the hair, is kind of going in the proper direction, if that makes sense. So if we flip over on the one side and you just kind of like comb it down, it kind of sits really nice. That means this is the direction of the nape, so it's going from top to bottom. If you go from the other direction, it gets kind of spiky and crazy, and with some of them, you'll actually start to see a little bit of the back of the faux fur. So we know that's kind of like the reverse of the nape. You definitely want to make sure that when we're cutting this out, because this is the grain line, we want to make sure we're going this direction, not this way, because then we would end up cutting it where this is sideways, which would be a little weird. We're going to cut one more of these. For the knot, it wants us to stitch kind of a U, leaving one end open. The open end is going to be what sits at the top of the collar. So we need to make sure that everything is going in direction of the nape. When pinning the bottom, see how we've got all of this fluff on the outside? I'm just going to try my best to tuck it in. And then we're going to do the same thing on the sides. I mean, it does take what should be like a really quick little, run to the sewing machine and stitch it into a much longer process. But believe me, it is going to look much nicer and be totally worth it. Once we've got all 3 of those sides pinned, I'm just going to take it to the machine and give it a stitch. After I finish stitching it up, I just pinked the edges and trim them down so it wouldn't be so bulky. And now we're going to hopefully be able to turn this inside out real easy.
Yep, it's going to be not hard at all, is it? Nope. It's just gonna be so easy. So easy. Just a tiny turtle. Tiny turtle.
There, we have made what looks like a rabbit's foot. Yeah, so let's move on to actually cutting out the collar itself. Here's the thing about the collar. I went back and forth quite a bit on whether the lining of the collar should be the faux fur again, or if it should be the lining of the dress. Because my fear was if I did the lining of the dress, you might be able to see that on the other side. But then I was like, if I do both faux fur on both sides, it's just gonna be potentially just too thick and not lay right. I did end up deciding to go with the dress fabric for the lining because I figure you're really not going to see that because of the faux fur at the edges. It's going to cover the edge anyway, and it's not really going to roll out the way a facing would on a dress. Now that the collar is all stitched together, we do the fun part, which is to turn it right side out. And then we're going to attach this to the neckline. Because we made changes to the neckline, we also are going to need to make the same changes on the facings. I just went ahead and rough cut these out so that we can just actually make the changes right onto the pattern piece rather than having to move them onto a separate piece and making a lot more work for ourselves. I'm going to show you the process on the facing for the front, and you'll just simply do the same process on the facing back. All we're going to do is we're going to take our front bodice piece and we're going to line it up on the facing piece below. And because this section is the section we didn't change, that's what we're going to primarily line up. Just weigh that down. So now all I'm going to do is trace this, and I'm going to go from the edge of my shoulder here, and then I'm just following this down until I have finally reached where it normalizes, I guess you would say. Returns back to the original markings of the pattern. So we're going to follow the blue line for our shape, and then over here I'm just going to go onto the 16 line and just softly kind of draw a curve up until where that meets up there. So that is our new facing, and all we're going to do is cut it out. The facing is now all stitched on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through here with my scissors, and I'm going to first take out like a lot of this bulk from the faux fur. Now that I've trimmed out that extra fuzziness in here, but before I pink the edges, I want to do what's called understitching. This will also help to keep the facing rolled inside the dress instead of coming out. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this through the machine, and we're going to do an understitch right at the edge here. And then once that's done, then I'll come back and pink the edges. There is a pattern piece for this dress, but I am going to use the circle skirt pattern that I created just because it's the right length and I know it fits and all that good stuff. And I will place a link in the description and up on the screen to that video. It's a really old one, but I think it still is pretty good. The other thing that I'm going to do, because this is such a directional print, I want, obviously the print is going to kind of curve as it goes, but I want the front of the skirt, which is over here, to be the normal direction, I guess is the best way to say that. So I'm going to cut this out as 4 panels. So to do that, I am going to have to add a 5/8 of an inch allowance on this side. But yeah, I'm just going to cut those 4 pieces out, attach them all together, put some pockets in, and attach it to the bodice. Let's take a look at the finished dress. And let me tell you, I have no words to describe how much I love this dress. It turned out exactly the way I envisioned it in my mind. It is a super comfy dress. Part of that has to do with that the waistline of the dress is just a smidge too large, which I don't know how I did that because I don't think I've lost weight, but it makes it a super comfy dress for overeating at the holidays, so bonus. But it's just, I love the full skirt of it. The sleeves, everything just comes together. I will be using any and every excuse to wear this dress as much as humanly possible for the rest of this month. Gonna wear it to the Christmas party, gonna wear it on Christmas Eve, gonna go to the grocery store, gonna wear the dress, going to the post office, gonna wear the dress. Oh, do I have to take out the garbage can? I'm gonna wear the dress. I love this dress. I also love hearing from you guys. So in the comment section below, let me know what you thought of today's project, if you would have chose a different dress design. And of course, if you like this video, go ahead and click that thumbs up. It really does help with the algorithm. And before I let you go, a huge subscriber shout out to Chelsea Troxel. I'm probably saying that wrong, but thank you so much for watching, liking, and commenting on my videos and being a part of our cozy little online community. And of course, if you guys are going to miss this face between uploads, be sure and follow me on all the social media as A Vintage Vanity. If you want to keep watching more of my content, go ahead and click the video you see right there. And of course, before you leave, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye.